Hey, how's it going, guys? Mr. Boss for the win here, and in today's Grand Theft Auto 5 video, I'm going to be talking to you guys about something you really wanted me to cover after my video the other day, which is where I essentially talked about how Grand Theft Auto 5 was being blamed for the Paris terrorist attacks, where basically 130 plus people lost their lives. It was a really tragic and horrific event, and it was obviously something you never want to see. And the defense lawyer for the shooter was actually using Grand Theft Auto as a scapegoat and blaming the Grand Theft Auto generation for not knowing that they're not in a computer game, which I thought was totally ridiculous. And I said in that video, if you guys wanted me to cover the effects that terrorist attacks have had on the Grand Theft Auto series, let me know in the comments section. And there was an overwhelming response. So in today's video, that's exactly what I'm going to do. This is meant to be an informational video, not a video here to open up sore wounds or bring up any bad memories. This is simply just for information purposes, but it is interesting because there have been real life events that have happened, tragic events that have had an impact on the Grand Theft Auto series. So let's talk about it right now. So the main event we're going to be talking about today is the September 11th terrorist attacks that took place in New York City on September 11th, 2001. It was a very tragic day. Essentially, this is where the two World Trade Center towers were taken down via two airplanes that were run into them. Very tragic event, extremely sad, but it was also really great to see the country come together, rebuild those two areas, and there were actually some effects that happened because of that in Grand Theft Auto, in two games in particular, GTA 3 and also a little bit in Grand Theft Auto 4. So Grand Theft Auto 3, you guys may or may not have played that game, but it takes place in Liberty City, which of course is the fictional city for New York City. Now, the first big change that this event caused was actually a game delay. That's right, Grand Theft Auto 3 was actually delayed because of these attacks. So Grand Theft Auto 3 was supposed to release on September 19th, 2001. However, as you guys know, just 8 days before, those horrific attacks actually took place. So it was delayed for two reasons. The first reason is that Rockstar's office is actually in New York City, so they were directly affected by the attack itself. Dan Houser and Sam Houser went on to even go on and say that everyone was affected by this attack, including them, because they were so close to it. So I believe they took off for about a week or two, and obviously just out of respect, they weren't going about their normal activity. So that was one reason. And two, they didn't feel it was appropriate to release a violent video game like Grand Theft Auto. It's rated M for a reason, right after such a tragic event. So it was actually delayed 3 weeks, and instead of coming out on September 19th, 2001, it came out on October 22nd, 2001, so about 3 or 4 weeks later. So obviously that's not a huge delay like we've seen with some other Grand Theft Auto games and Rockstar titles. You guys know that GTA 5 was delayed nearly 6 months when it was supposed to come out in spring 2013, but of course ended up coming out in September of 2013. So it's not uncommon to see Rockstar delay games, but this one was for, of course, a much more serious and tragic meaning. The second change was actually the color of the police cars. So obviously we know Liberty City is supposed to be New York City, and the cars and the police officers in that game wore like blue and white outfits, and they had blue and white cars. They were supposed to represent the NYPD, the New York police officers. However, of course, Rockstar didn't feel like that was very appropriate. Obviously, given the way that many police officers, firefighters sacrificed their lives on that day to try to rescue and save some people. So they changed the colors, and I'll put an image on the screen right now. It went from like I said, the blue and the white to more of like a greenish, grayish, black and white. And the reason they did this is they wanted to make it more look like the rest of the police cars and police departments in the United States. So places like Los Angeles and San Francisco, they went with a more generic black and white design as compared to the blue with the white stripes that resembled more of the New York Police Department. All right, the third change that was actually made actually has to do with the flight path of airplanes. So you guys know, even in Grand Theft Auto 5, but way back in GTA 3, there were random airplanes that would fly in the sky. And obviously, due to the events that occurred, Rockstar had to alter the flight path of planes to avoid them flying into or behind a skyscraper. So they actually had to take out a lot of this. Planes would essentially disappear if they got pretty close to a building, you can actually go in GTA 3 and you'll notice that they'll either go away or that they'll reverse course, not even really heading into parts of the city. Clearly, they didn't want people to assume that Rockstar was maybe, recapturing this event or maybe encouraging something like this to happen. So they ultimately did end up changing that. Another thing they removed was, believe it or not, and this is kind of ironic, a terrorist-like mission. That's right, there was a mission in Grand Theft Auto 3 that referenced terrorists and terrorism, and I think you actually had to take a dodo plane and you had to fly it really close to a building. So as ironic as that sounds and as creepy as that is, Rockstar definitely wanted that mission out of the game. And in that mission, they also cut out another character. His name was Darkle, who was a revolutionary urchin who vowed to bring down the city's economy. And they just thought Darkle was not a good representation of what Liberty City should be about, bringing down the city's economy. So they clearly cut that out of the game. Another thing that was changed was some radio and audio lines from pedestrians and the in-game voice actors. They definitely wanted to make sure that there wasn't any reference to any crazy activities or suspicious things going on. You guys know how hyper on edge people were right after that event, so they wanted to make sure that was not in the game. And probably the biggest change that happened was the box art. That's right, the events of 9/11 and the effect of that terrorist attack actually changed the box art for the Grand Theft Auto series forever. So this is the original box art. I'll have it on the screen right now. You can see it's a pretty much like an all-white background with just like a cluster of characters, cars, explosions, and the city in the background. So it was pretty crazy and hectic. And now you've got the box art that we all know that has been in every Grand Theft Auto game since 3. It's like the polygon shapes and boxes and various mosaic characters. So that was the new box art that was recreated. Obviously, it's a little less explosive. It's got a little less fire and cars and guns in it. So I think that was to maybe get a more politically correct box art out there. But nonetheless, that was probably the biggest and most noticeable change that did end up happening because of that. Now, Rockstar has also gone on the record and stated that the game is about 1% different after 9/11. So pretty much the game was 99.99% the same. And of course, we only know those small differences that were added, with the biggest change, of course, being the box art. Okay, moving on from Grand Theft Auto 3 to GTA 4, there was one thing that actually was removed from Grand Theft Auto 4 and another giant rumor, the first of which is Rockstar had to remove a 6-block radius around Ground Zero. So Ground Zero, essentially the location where there's a memorial now of those attacks, and Rockstar essentially cut that out of the game. They didn't want any reference to the area, to the buildings that clearly weren't there. Obviously, right now there's a beautiful new World Trade Center 1 that is up in New York City, but that wasn't quite ready when Rockstar was probably making GTA 4, so they just totally cut that out of the game. And while it's supposed to be close to a 1-to-1 scale of New York City, Rockstar had to cut out a 6-block radius from Ground Zero. And then another rumor is in Grand Theft Auto 4, you can't actually fly airplanes. And it was one of the first few GTA games that didn't have that. Obviously, we had gone from Vice City and San Andreas, which allowed you to, and everyone was like, why in GTA 4 can you not fly airplanes? And of course, everyone wanted to point to the 9/11 attacks where, obviously flying an airplane, people might want to try to replicate that event. And Rockstar maybe didn't want that, but that actually isn't the case. And Sam and Dan Houser have actually confirmed that it's the size of Liberty City's map that is actually the reason why there are no airplanes. And he actually has a good point, because Liberty City is pretty small. I mean, even if you're on a car or a bike, you can get from one side of the map to the other in about 3 to 4 to 5 minutes. And even with the helicopters in game, you can do so in about 2 or 3 minutes. So the airplanes really didn't make sense because you would just be able to speed across the map in 30 seconds. That might take a little bit of the realism out of the way. Number 2 is also, where would you land the airplane outside of Francis International Airport? In Grand Theft Auto 5, there's at least 3 airports, 3 or 4, I think, and there's a lot of wilderness and long stretches of highway where you can land pretty much a airplane anywhere you want. But in Grand Theft Auto 4, there was only that one airport, and the rest of the islands were cities. So there really wasn't a wilderness area. There wasn't more than one airport. So it probably just didn't make sense to include airplanes in the game. And as far as the other Grand Theft Auto games, there really hasn't been any major event that has occurred. Nothing really to speak of in Vice City as far as Miami, nothing as far as in Los Angeles that would promote or prompt Rockstar to make any drastic changes. So those are really the only two games that have been affected by the same event, and it's most likely because obviously they take place in the same city, Liberty City, the fictional New York City. So hopefully, once again, this video was helpful for you, and maybe you got some information that you didn't know. And if you're curious about some of those changes, hopefully I was able to answer that in this video today. Let me know what you kind of think about the controversy and the changes Rockstar made in the comments section down below. If you did go on and enjoy the video, a like rating would of course be awesome. And also subscribe to my YouTube channel if you are new or you like daily GTA 5 videos like this. With out of the way, guys, like I said, thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you guys in the next video.